All right, we get it rolling on the Krueger Show. Hope everybody's having a good day. It is July the 19th, 2023, 4:12 on the West Coast, 7:12 on the East Coast. Hope everybody's having a great day. The great Raj from RSF 49ers will be joining us shortly. He's coming home from a long day at work, so he said he'll be joining us any minute now. But what I did, because I haven't done this in a while, I decided, of course, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Get the brisket chili. It's all top-tier stuff. We're also brought to you by New York-style Italian sausage. And we have a brand new sponsor. We should probably put them on the bottom of the screen, as we normally do, and that is my good buddy Saeed, the owner of Marin Auto Glass, is now a sponsor as well. MarinAutoGlass.com, 415-883-3030. But we're going to talk a little 49ers with Raj once he gets here, and we just went live earlier today with our good buddy Wayne Breezy from Connecticut, and we're going to touch base with Raj. Normally we do it on a Monday, but I was filling in at 95.7 The Game for Guru Monday morning, so I didn't get a chance to do my normal 1 o'clock at Monday's slot with Raj. So we moved him to Wednesday at 4, and now we're just waiting on him. But I did put in the stream the caller link, so it's in there. If you want to do a video call, if you want to, we take video calls, and we have in the past. Digital Drew sometimes jumps in, and Chardal has jumped in a few times, and a bunch of people will jump in from time to time. And I want to do more of that this year. I want to do more video calls. I like talking with the fans. I like talking with Niner fans. I like getting people that are, not necessarily media people on the show, or players or scouts or coaches. And give people their say. So I just put the link to the show in the deal, and if you want to jump in, feel free. And Michael Monahan has jumped in, so let's go to Michael. I don't know if he's got the camera rolling. Michael, how are you?
Doing well. How you doing, Larry?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic. Now, are you trying to get the camera rolling, or are you going to just go audio only?
Well, how badly do people want to see my beautiful face?
Well, either way is fine with me. I've done enough years of radio. There we go. So now
I'm on my iPad, so we'll see.
No problem. You got the fan going in the background. Where are you calling from?
I'm in blazing hot Phoenix.
Oh, there you go.
I'm a
we were just there. We were there in March for spring training.
What's that?
We went to spring training. My sons and I took a week off and went down to spring training, courtesy of New York style Italian sausage, and we had a little spring training trip, a little Airbnb in Scottsdale, and took in some Giants games in Scottsdale. But March, I love Arizona in March. I don't know if I love it quite as much in June and July.
Yeah, it's August. 119 here today.
119.
Yeah.
So, when you get in your car and it's parked outside in 119, can you even touch the steering wheel?
Well, I keep one of those window screens in, so yeah, but if I don't, it's rough. And, heaven forbid you get the metal part of a seatbelt that touches your skin.
Oh, my God.
And you're hurting.
Yeah, you're screaming. Ah! So what's on your mind? I see I have your chat here as well. It says, Larry, live again, trying hard to lose that lazy label.
Yeah, man, you take a break for, a bathroom and drink break, and you're right back on the air.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just the way it worked out. It's just the way it worked out today. But it's funny when you've done radio for decades, it's like, I'm used to talking for 4 hours. So, when we do a live stream, we go for 45 minutes, maybe an hour and a half. It just goes by in a blink of an eye compared to a radio show. So that's just kind of my mindset. But what's your focus? Are you a Niner guy, Giant guy, or you're there in the desert? Are you a Bay Area transplant?
I'm a Niner guy. I've chatted with you before, and you probably don't remember, but I lost interest in football for a long time, and this young man who grew up with my kids in my neighborhood, I started paying attention again about when he got into high school. And then when he went to Iowa State and started playing as a rookie at the QB position, I was all in. And then, of course, when Brock got drafted to the Niners, I grew up in Sacramento, so I was a big Niners fan. I think I told you before I went to Sac State.
Okay. We share that in common.
Yep. So, I was a Niner fan as a kid. And like I said, I stopped paying attention until Brock, kind of made it personal for me again. And I've been on the Niner wagon again ever since then. And I'll admit I'm very biased towards Brock. I love Trey, but, Brock's got to rock. That's my guy. I've known him since he was about 7. So I'm hoping he does well.
So how surprised were you how well he's played?
I think, I've watched him since, way back in Pee Wee football, but I really started watching him in high school. And we always knew he was good. He was really good. He had mono his junior year, which kind of messed with his scouting and stuff. But yeah, when he got to Iowa State and he started lighting it up, and he brought that program around, it was we knew there was something special there. And, I don't think any of us imagined that he'd get much playing time last year, just the way things were with Trey Lance and Jimmy. Who would have known they would have gone up, through 2 quarterbacks and him got his chance. But we always knew that Brock had the drive, he had the skills, he had the mentality. And, we knew he would do well, but I don't think any of us knew how well he would do. So obviously,
it's funny. I did not love the pick on draft day. I thought, because I'd watched him at Iowa State, and I just always thought of him as a college quarterback who didn't have enough of an arm to play in the NFL. And then, interestingly enough, he went down to Jacksonville and worked with those coaches on his mechanics, and they came up with about 5 or 6 miles an hour of extra juice on the fastball. And he already had the other attributes, right? I mean, he had the intellect, he had the processing ability, he had the accuracy. The guy had played great football in college, winning football. Heck, if you can win at Iowa State, it's not like Iowa State's some dominant Big 12 outfit, and they were very good there when he was there. And then, interestingly enough, they went 1-8 the first year he wasn't there.
I forget what the record was. I forget what the record was before, the season before, he won the starting job. But yeah, I mean, he broke pretty much every school record there was to be broken there. And, if you look at, he had to play a little hero ball there, because of, the team and who they were and who they were competing against. And I think, when Breece Hall came around, some of his, passing got handed off to Breece because Breece was so good. And so obviously that impacted some of his numbers in the last couple of years. But it's no surprise to me if you look at Brock's targets at Iowa State that him and Kittle are just, totally in sync, because Brock has always been just totally, laser beam focused on tight ends. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but the big tight end,
Charles Kohler.
Kohler, yeah. Those two connected probably more than anybody else, and so it's not surprising at all to see Brock targeting him a lot, for the Niners.
Oh, I know. I mean, Kittle. I mean, I said to Kittle late in the year, I'm like, man, because Kittle obviously had a great relationship with Jimmy, and he didn't want to be overly glowing of Brock. But I'm like, after it was like about a month in, I'm like, hey, Brock, you're playing the best, most productive football of your career with Brock. And he was very complimentary of Brock, but he didn't want to be in any way, didn't want to be critical of Jimmy because Jimmy's his buddy. But I don't know if it's because Kittle runs the routes in the middle of the field, for if Brock likes going to the tight end, or if he just likes going to sure-handed receivers, and Kittle's a sure-handed receiver. But yeah, I mean, Kittle was noted. The best ball of Kittle's career has been played with Brock Purdy, and if Kittle, if they get a chance to play together for a number of years, Kittle could put up incredible numbers with Brock.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Brock is really good at threading the needle in the middle of the field too. And so, that's a lot of times where George Kittle will wind up. And, just for whatever reason, his accuracy and his timing is so good that he can thread the needle between two receivers and find Kittle and make that play. So,
what's your thought on how much we'll see of Brock this summer? What do you think?
Well, I keep predicting that he'll be back and ready to go by August 1st. That's not based on any personal information I have. That's just my hot take. And seems like based on where everything's going right now, that could happen. We'll see. I don't think they're going to rush him. I think he's ahead of schedule. And, you think about it, he was throwing a full-size football on, what was it, May 29th?
What was impressive to me was when the Niners was at the rookie minicamp, they had Clayton Thorson, the former Northwestern quarterback, out there, and he had the same surgery. And he was throwing the deep ball as well or better than I remember him throwing it at Northwestern. So, I kind of was, I guess maybe Brock dodged a bullet by not having to have reconstructive surgery. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I that whole narrative about him needing Tommy John, I just never got it because, Tommy John is really the situation that's called for when you have long-term repetitive chronic injury where the tendon is just shredded and degraded. He had a very acute tear and the tissue is otherwise very healthy. So it really was never a question for me that he was going to need Tommy John. And so all the while I heard people talking about that on these podcasts, I was just kind of laughing. And, I saw Brock, I was at his house, his parents' house on I think it was the Friday before he had surgery. And I went over there because his sister was selling like some Purdy swag. Like he had these Bang Bang Purdy Gang jackets
right,
and koozie cups and all that stuff. So I bought a few things from his sister. And he shook my hand, about ripped my arm off with his bad arm.
You knew then that maybe it wasn't so bad.
He's going to be okay.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, I'll let you jet, but thanks for jumping in here. And when we go to calls, I'd love to have you call in again, man. It really is one of my favorite things, doing calls, and we're going to do a regular caller segment throughout the football season. But thanks for jumping in, and hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Sure thing, man. Keep up the great content. Appreciate it. I love watching the show. And tell Grant he's just flat out wrong about it. All his takes.
Okay. I'll tell him. Thanks, Michael. Michael Monahan checking in as we take a call. Now we welcome in RSF 49ers own Raj. What's up, Raj? In fact, Clarsard 49 in the chat here says, Raj sounds a little different today. LOL. Maybe a small cold going on? And then the next spaghetti goes, hey, that's Michael Monahan calling in. So there you go. Raj, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm good. Definitely don't have a cold. Bang, bang, Purdy gang. I like that story. I heard it as I came in, but I'm good. I'm just coming home. Been a busy day, but I'm ready to go. Niner football around the corner, Larry. Next week.
I know, man. I'm so fired up. I spent last week down at in San Luis Obispo with the family. Went to the beach. Day at Avila Beach, a couple days at Pismo Beach. Kids did some zip lining and just had some enjoyed that coastal weather. I grew up in the Sunset District in the city, and I live in Walnut Creek now because my wife is from Walnut Creek. Yeah. And so she wanted to live here when we had kids. And I'm like, yeah, I like Walnut Creek. It's nice. And, I've never met anybody who's like anti-Walnut Creek, right? No. But it's fucking hot as hell out here, man. In the summertime, it's hot. And I'm a Sunset kid. I'm used to fog. It's from my dad, my late father used to be, if it was 75 degrees, he'd be like, oh, it's a scorcher. It's a scorcher. It's like, yeah, we lived in the fog, and it was just like, there was different levels of fog. There was dense fog, summer fog, winter fog, it's like mostly fog. So I'm not really used to, and I like the nice weather out here, don't get me wrong. But when it gets to July and it starts to creep over 95, I like 85. I like 75 to 90. If it gets to 95 and hotter, it's like, oh my God, enough. No, please, let me get out of here. And we have AC and everything. It's not like you can't beat the heat. And we got a pool and whatever. So, but I mean, it's still hot as heck.
Yeah, it just wears you down, and when you're driving out in the heat, even if the AC in the car, it drives you down. You live in a good area, but it does get warm. And I'm the same way. I grew up in Vegas, so it was like so hot.
Oh,
I thought
Vegas.
I thought, oh, I'm gonna come out to San Jose. It's gonna be beautiful, 70 degrees, 80 degrees. It's still hot. It gets up to like 90 degrees, sometimes 100 degrees, and it's just when it's hot, Larry. I don't care if it's 120 like in Vegas or 90 degrees in San Jose. It's hot out here, and it's just brutal, man. I can't wait for the summer to be over. Although training camp, dog days, you gotta deal with the heat out there. So I gotta make sure I pack a lot of water.
Exactly. Yeah. Robbie 439 says Walnut Creek's beautiful, but my goodness, it's like 20 degrees hotter there.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously, it's warm. I mean, and it's not Vegas, but it's Spaghetti says it's gonna be 96 tomorrow in Walnut Creek, and the gym that I belong to, it's like they've got a little AC going, they got fans going, but they'll have the doors open. So it's like one of those places you gotta work out in the morning. It's like I don't like lifting weights when I'm just drenched in sweat. I like to, if I'm I gotta have some cool air going. I used to work out in SAC in a LA workout, and the place was like, cool AC. Then you walk outside, it was like a wall of heat that would hit you. But let's talk a little Niners. How much camp will you get a chance to check out? Now, do you come down for camp and sit in the stands? What's your mode for camp?
So I'm gonna be there pretty much every day. I got my work schedule built around it. I'm usually there every day. Try to get as much content. I know I'm not in there with you guys, but I'm moving around. I'm getting content. I bring my camera. I do it all. I try to get as much content as I can while I'm out there. I'm in the stands, but there's like a little caddy corner where a lot of people, Rohan and all the other content creators, we kind of huddle together and we get as much content as we can from, up in the rafters. But we have a good section. And, when they say put your phones away, we put our phones away. Sometimes we don't. But, I'll be there every day. I try to interact with as many people as I can. I see a lot of the fans, and they recognize me. And it's always cool to interact with them. But
they do, though. The Niner media people will say, okay, this part of camp you can't film. They always tell us that.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize they tell the fans that too.
Yeah. Oh, there's people that have like signs, and they're like, when they pull the sign up, don't put your phone out. And some people try to play. They'll look at you, and if you're kind of a person that's not good at kind of keeping that phone away, and they see you, you're gonna stick out in their mind. So you gotta have to you have to know when to have your phone out and when not to. But yeah, that's how it is. You go out there, you see the training camp, you try to know where to be, and being out there so many times, you kind of know where to line up, know the good angles and stuff. And yeah, it's always fun. I see a lot of the other content creators I've seen on YouTube and 49er Web Zone. I see a lot of those guys out there. Like Crockers sometimes out there, guys like that. So it's always cool to interact with them and then the fans. And this year's gonna be a little different for me because I'm gonna go there. As soon as it's over, I gotta leave. Usually I hang around, stay with the talk with the fans, talk with the media and all that. But this year I gotta go, and then I gotta go because I got other things to do. So a little different this year, but it's still gonna be fun trying to get as much content as I can get in. And then when I get home in the evening, we'll talk about it.
Okay, a couple things. One, there was an interesting story, and it's like I'm looking at 49er Web Zone, and their top story by David Bonilla is Albert Breer names potential future 49er cap casualties after the Bosa and the Ayuk extension. Are you familiar with this story?
I just saw it pop up earlier, but I haven't got the whole details on it. So let's go back.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, and just to kind of, Breer I don't know who did the interview with Breer, but Breer was talking Niners, and he basically said that, after the Niners sign Bosa to an extension, which should be before camp starts, my guess is he'll get 30 to 33 million a year, somewhere in there. It'll give the Niners a little bit of a brief, hit on this year's cap, but then, of course, it's expensive going forward. Then there's Brandon Ayuk, who may get an extension at some point as well. Anyway, he goes on and says that when you look ahead to 2024, the 49ers have 9 players that are set to account for nearly $190 million against their 2024 cap, including Debo, Trent, Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Mooney Ward, Hargrave, McCaffrey, and then Brandon Ayuk at $14.1 million they're estimating, and of course Bosa's in that mix as well. He says, assuming he's with the team, quarterback Trey Lance will be in his 4th season and add a fully guaranteed $10.9 million to that number. And then he goes on to write a Trey Lance trade, if he has a strong preseason this year, could create some breathing room. Having both Warner and Greenlaw as off-ball linebackers could be seen as a luxury. So maybe Greenlaw's another guy that could be offloaded. And then he says if McCaffrey shows his age or winds up getting hurt, it's possible that he could be on the chopping block. And then he also throws Kyle Juszczyk out there as a guy who could be on the chopping block as well. But, it's interesting. Let's focus on the Lance thing for a second, because I think, first of all, all these insiders have, they've been basically chirping. I mean, I said it. I was the first one to say it in February when I heard John Lynch say, hey, Trey's got to play, and that's the challenge because we got a team that's ready to go. And to me, it just sounded very much like they were shopping him. And this is before any of these guys actually came out and said as much. Then you heard Rappaport and Breer and some of these guys, Schefter, kind of suggest that the trading of Trey Lance was at least a possibility. I thought it would happen before the draft. It didn't happen before the draft. And Lance is still on the team, but we don't know that it didn't happen at the draft because they decided they don't want to trade him, or if it didn't happen at the draft because they didn't get an offer they liked. It came out of the draft like the talk was, well, there was no market for him. Like it wasn't like, hey, the Niners changed their mind. They don't want to keep him. They're all in on Trey Lance and staying with Trey Lance in the future. That wasn't the report. The report was, there wasn't a market for him. And Rappaport, when he had a chance to basically say, when he wasn't dealt during the draft, he could have easily came out and just said, hey, you know what? I was wrong. Trey's not going to be traded, and I guess wrong, or my sources were wrong, or whatever. And he didn't do that. He kind of doubled down on it and was like, well, you may see a trade this summer when they know that Purdy's healthy and ready and this and that. Now you have Breer suggesting that the Niners could trade Trey Lance. And once again, I'll read the quote. A Lance trade, if he has a strong preseason, could create some breathing room. So I kind of look at it, and I think most people look at it as, if Trey plays well, then he's going to be a Niner, right? I mean, you drafted him, and I realize Brock has taken that number 1 job, but isn't the whole purpose of drafting Trey because you liked him? And you heard Kyle Juszczyk tell Haberman and Middlecoff the other day that Trey is beloved by the players in the room. And I believe that because he's a really likable young guy, and he's a respectful young guy, and he's all about working hard. And, there's no reason not to love him. He's got, very lovable traits. It's not like this guy is lazy or is a dog. This guy works hard, and football's important to him, and he's a solid human being. So I wasn't surprised at all by Juszczyk's comment. But what do you make of Breer's comment? Because I think if you ask most Niner fans, they feel like, okay, if Trey doesn't play well, maybe the Niners will move on. But nobody ever really goes to the point of if Trey plays well, they may move on. But now Breer's kind of painting this picture of them being in a tough cap spot, and that if Lance plays well, he's making it sound like there's a chance he could be dealt to create breathing room on the cap going forward. What do you make of that?
I mean, at the end of the day, is anybody on the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan said this many times, anybody's available for trade. Maybe not Nick Bosa. He's probably the one guy that they probably wouldn't trade right now. He's kind of like their only unexpendable guy. I feel like that's the vibe I've gotten from Kyle, but he said it many times. He goes, they're always looking to upgrade their team. They're always looking to get players and make their team as best as it can get. I mean, CMC, a lot of people last year didn't even think that was a possibility for them to make that trade, and they did it. And it was like shocking. I think people are still shocked now to this day that they have CMC. Like, nobody expected Lynch to go out there and do that midseason trade. So I feel like the 49ers, they assess their roster, and yeah, if there's an opportunity for them to trade to make their roster better, I think, of course, there's a possibility to trade anybody on this team. Now, because he does better definitely increases his value. But a lot of this is tied to Brock, as we know, his health and his well-being coming off the surgery. We still don't know. We don't know how he's been doing out there in Jacksonville. We will see what he's going to be able to do starting next week in training camp. Like, how limited is he going to be? How far along is he going to come in training camp? So I think if if Trey Lance plays good, I think it helps the Niners, because then they can kind of give Brock that cushion of saying, we don't need to rush him right now. And then Trey could come out there and play and start games. And if he wins, the better he does, that it increases his value for the future if they do have to trade him. Now, it also helps them evaluate him in the terms of, they did draft him. They, again, being a team that traded so much to go and get Trey Lance, they're a team that they're capable to make those trades if they really have to. That's how they got Trey in the first place. They made a big trade. They made a bold move. So I don't think that it's impossible for them to trade him, but I think that Trey's going to stick around just for the fact of we still don't know what's going to happen with Brock, and then if he has some setbacks, you have Trey. So I think it's going to be two quarterbacks coming in, and it's going to be good for the team. But in terms of the whole salary cap situation, they usually figure it out. Parag's good at backloading contracts, restructuring things. So if they have to, I'm sure they'll play the numbers game and have to move things around. But it is a concern for the 49ers. Because, they have Bosa that's going to come on the books. It'll give them some, cap space this year when they extend it, but then it kicks in next year. And you're right, Brandon Ayuk. Then they have Debo, who's primed for a big year. He looks like he's going to kind of have a comeback season this year. And then if Debo does good, now is he going to be expendable? Will he be on the trading block? So it's not just Trey Lance. I think you can say that for any of these players. But, of course, the media likes to single out Trey because he's the quarterback, and 49ers tend to focus on the quarterback in the offseason, and it gets headlines. So it makes people think, is Trey Lance on the trading block? So I think you can say that for everybody on this team, Larry, that Fred Warner, if he plays great, maybe they move on from him, because you're right. Greenlaw, maybe he takes that next step and becomes this all-pro, and it makes Fred Warner expendable. You can say that for anybody. Players, are not guaranteed to stick around their teams nowadays because of the nature of the NFL. It's a business, unfortunately. Yeah. But
we don't know. We don't know what we don't know is we don't know, one, how the Niners really feel about Brock.
Yeah.
And how they really feel about Trey. Are they in love with Brock and feel that Brock's their next superstar quarterback, or do they just think that he's the guy who's healthiest and helps them win best this year? Do they like Trey on the same level they did the day they drafted him? Or, because, to me, if he plays well, he's here. But the way Breer shapes this, he almost makes it seem like if he plays well, there'll be a market for him, and then he won't be here, which is very interesting. If I said to you, of all those guys that we just named, and once again, we'll name them, Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Trent, Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Mooney Ward, Hargrave, McCaffrey, Trey Lance, Dre Greenlaw, Kyle Juszczyk. Obviously, Nick Bosa, too. First of all, it's a lot of top-end talent.
Some good players.
It's a lot of good players there. But if I told you have to move on from two of those guys, you got to pick of that list. You got to move on from two of those guys. Who are you willing to move on from?
I guess Kyle Juszczyk. I love him. But, out of all those guys, it's not to single them out. It's just out of all those guys, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I hear you. They're all great players. And we're talking about, if any of these players are watching, Raj and I think all of you guys are great players. If we name somebody here as the two guys they should move off of, when I'm walking around that locker room, don't put a finger in my chest and say, hey,
butt, man.
You wanted me out of here. We think you're great players. We just named a bunch of great players. Man, all those guys are Pro Bowl caliber players.
Yeah.
That's a Pro Bowl list, man. Once again, Debo, Trent, Armstead, Warner, Kittle, Mooney Ward, Hargrave, CMC, Dre Greenlaw, Juszczyk, Trey Lance. You got to move on from two. You're going to go Juszczyk. I agree with you on Juszczyk because you got Jack Coletto sitting there.
And fullback at the end of the day,
fullback.
Those positions isn't the most valuable position in the NFL. And with the 49ers, I feel like Shanahan can get someone not as good as Juszczyk because the guy's phenomenal. But I think out of that list, you move on from him. And, maybe Trey's the next guy up on that list. That's tough. If they see this, I'm not singling you guys out.
Raj wants you out.
Based on that list, that's hard, Larry. But I mean, those are the two guys, I think. So that's why
it would be Juszczyk and Trey.
So when Albert Breer makes that list, it's logical. He's the easiest guy to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, they can get $10 million relief if they trade Trey Lance." So it's logical. It makes sense. I see where Breer's head is. But, I mean, there is some great thing. Because you're going to get rid of Dre Greenlaw. You're going to get rid of Fred Warner before you get rid of those two guys. You're probably not. You're not. Maybe Dre Greenlaw. Maybe you can make the – because –
What do you think of this one? What do you think of L. Fox? He says, I think Lance will be traded before the season and Debo after the season, and they'll sign Ayuk.
No, I think they find a way to keep Ayuk and Debo. Honestly, I think they do.
Here's the other angle on this that and Breer throws this in the last paragraph. He says, the 49ers could certainly get creative, as they've done in the past, extending certain players and pushing their salary cap hits into future seasons. However, even with a rising salary cap from year to year, you can only do so much of that before it catches up to you. So, yeah, I mean, I hear you. I mean, these are not I hear what Breer's saying. You know what I'm saying? It's like these are not complicated concepts. You know, you can't have – it's a cap sport. It's not like the old Eddie D days where you could have, you know, Michael Carter and Jim Burt and Fred Smerlas, or they went like 3 deep with like starting nose guards back then because Eddie was like, yeah, I want him. All right, he's on the team. You know, it's like the Niners used to have unbelievable depth because Eddie wanted to pay everybody and did. But now it's a cap deal and you got to make very tough decisions. I don't know, man. I guess I would probably say of that group, it would probably be goodbye Juice and goodbye Trey. But what if Trey plays great? What if and let me ask you this. What do you expect? There's this other story going on about Jeff Christensen that, and I just did a video on this that will go up on the channel here in an hour or so. Christensen's an interesting guy. Christensen was Patrick Mahomes' quarterback coach.
Yeah.
And Trey worked with him this offseason. Christensen is on record as saying that we are going to see a different version of Trey Lance this summer. Somewhat boasting, on his own.
Yeah,
he's flexing. He's like, hey, look, man, I turned this kid into an awesome player.
Yeah.
But, you know, Christensen, for people who don't know, he's a 63-year-old former NFL quarterbacked at Eastern Illinois, had a brief cup of coffee with the Bengals, the Browns, and the Eagles in the mid to late 80s as a backup quarterback. And now he's been a quarterback guru, and he's been working with Patrick Mahomes, and you saw him working with Trey Lance this offseason. And I think Trey is going to look a whole lot better this summer. Why? Because I think he's got all the traits. He's got the strength. He's got the size. He's got the smarts. He's got the desire. I think he's passionate about improving. I think he's passionate about being great. You don't seek out Jeff Christensen and Patrick Mahomes and spend all this time if you're just kind of sort of into it. He really wants to be great. And look at his career so far. Year 1 was a redshirt year, sitting behind Jimmy. He was very respectful. He was so young, so raw. Wasn't ready to play, didn't need to play. Year 2, they hand him the keys to the car. He goes down in the Seattle game, done for the year.
Yeah.
Then Brock takes over, plays great ball, leads them to 12 straight victories in the NFC Championship game. Then he gets hurt. And now here we are in year 3. And, Trey's not been handed the number 1 job now. Now he's got to compete for it. And to me, he in the OTAs, I mean, and this is OTAs. And once again, I feel like I know a lot about football. I feel like I've got a pretty good eye for it. But you know what? The media are only allowed into 1 practice for every 5 in the offseason.
Yeah.
So when I tell you what I'm seeing, you can take it to the bank, but it's only 20% of the total of what the coaches are seeing, right? Like Kyle and the coaches are seeing 80% that I'm not seeing. I'm only seeing 20%. So I like full disclosure before I tell you, I know. And a lot of those content creators get real boastful and I know, and I've seen in my eyes. I know what I'm talking about, but I've only seen 20% of it. Yeah. But Raj, in the 20% I've seen, what I've seen from Trey Lance this year is eerily similar to what I saw from Brock Purdy last year.
in that he's mastering every drill. He's calm. He's relaxed. He's comfortable. He's more in lockstep with his receivers. There's fewer air-mailed passes. There's fewer passes into the turf. He's more on time. He's throwing with better touch, better timing. He looks in command. He looks improved. It's against air. There's no defense.
Yeah.
So it all has to be factored in. But to me, what I saw from Lance during the OTAs and the minicamp is very much like what I saw from Brock last year. Just total comfort and command of each and every drill that he's involved in. I don't know that he's going to play as well as Brock played this year, but that's what my eyes tell me. What do you expect to see from Trey this summer?
Yeah, no, and going back to working out with Jeff Christensen and shout out to him.
Yeah.
Because he should. If he's a guy that's his job is to help these quarterbacks get better, you want him to be confident because that's going to spill over to the quarterbacks he's working for. And if Trey Lance does good, it's going to reflect his work, and he's going to get more money because of it. So he should be boasting and saying, hey, look, Trey Lance looks great. And now Trey has to come in and prove what he said was right. And the thing I want to see out of Trey, which you kind of hinted towards, and again, it is a small sample size compared to what the NFL coaches are seeing, but I want to see that confidence because I think that's what separated him from Brock Purdy. And you kind of hit on it where he was more vocal, and that's what Brock had. He was confident. Of course, he was a rookie, but he didn't look like phased. He didn't look scared. He looked like, okay, I'm confident. And yeah, when Trey came in, 20-year-old, wide-eyed rookie, he was probably, I'm going to be honest, a little nervous, might have had the goosebumps in him. But now it's, he's in his third year. He knows what to expect more. He should be hitting those targets. He should be crisp. He should have confidence because he's always had the skill set. Like you said, he has the look. He has the skills, the technique. He can throw the ball deep. He has all the traits that you need, but he needs to be confident, and that's what I want to see. Because if he's going to be the quarterback one or the leader or starting quarterback at some point on this team, he has to be able to be calm, collected, confident, so he can lead these guys. Because we've mentioned these players, Ayuk and CMC and Debo and then Kittle, and those guys are the pros. They're all pros. You have to be confident to look them in the eye and say, look, I'm your guy. I'm going to get you the ball. Trust me. And because that's what Brock did. He was able to be confident, and those guys believed when he was the quarterback, they were going to get the ball delivered in the right space, and he was going to be able to run the offense efficiently. That's what we need to see is confidence out of Trey Lance. And I think that's what's kind of spilling over this offseason. I think that's what his quarterback coach, Jeff Christensen, is saying is he's more confident. And, hey, if you're working with Patrick Mahomes, he's the most confident quarterback probably of everybody out there. So that's going to kind of hopefully spill over to Trey, too. I want to see him be just so sure of himself when he's out there at training camp, and not second guess.
Yeah, I'd like to see, the ball come out with touch and timing and some consistency, and we'll take it from there. I really think if he does that and we see the touch and the timing and the consistency, I think he'll be good. I mean, I think he'll be a guy who's very competitive. If you said to me, make a prediction, I already talked about this earlier today, but I really think that that all the Niner quarterbacks are going to play pretty well. And I think Brock is going to be the one. I think Lance is going to beat out Darnold for 2. And then I think it's going to come down to Darnold or Allen for that third spot. And I think for cap reasons, the Niners are going to go with Allen. And I would not be surprised if Darnold was traded at the end of training camp. I think there'll be a market for him.
Maybe I like that. Maybe because he plays well enough to earn a spot somewhere else, and people are like, "Oh, we can be our backup." Maybe. But I think the Niners might keep him because they need all the quarterbacks they can get just to prevent an issue that happened. The situation happened last year. But I do see what you're saying because the money they're tying to Sam Darnold is quite different from Allen. So we'll see. I like that move. Now, the other day I was live and people were saying, I got to ask you this. So, Larry, you said that someone said that you said this in your show, and maybe you said it a different way or something, but you expect Juwan Jennings to be traded this offseason, or there was a prediction. And the more I think about it is, yeah, he's kind of coming into a contract year, talking about players that they may not be able to keep next year because he's a free agent basically after this year. This is contract season. So if JJ plays good, you think they trade him? Is that a guy that you expect maybe to be traded?
Well, he's such a leader in the room, and he's such a key player. I really love Juwan Jennings. He's made so many big catches. I'm just looking at there's a lot of people that think they're going to have to choose between Debo and Ayuk, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think they will. I think Debo and Ayuk, I think both are going to have big years this year. But I think there's a very good chance that, like, I'm looking at the receiver room, and I think they're going to keep 5. I think Debo and Ayuk for sure. I think Danny Gray is going to make this team if he shows anything, because he's got vertical speed. He opens up the field underneath. He's your vertical threat, and he creates a lot of space. And for a play caller like Shanahan, that's not just like, that's a nice little luxury. No, it's a necessity. So Gray, I think, makes it.
Okay.
Then there's Ray McLeod. And Ray, I think, makes it. So that's 4. And I think they're keeping 5. So then it comes down to, I think, what's going to be a old-fashioned, knockdown, drag-out, battle royale between Ronnie Bell, Tay Martin, and Juwan Jennings.
Yeah.
And I think Jennings right now has the upper hand, clearly, because he's done it. But, man, I mean, Tay Martin is big and he's got great ball skills, and he can really catch the football. He's gotten stronger. He looks pretty explosive. He's not going to run away from you. He doesn't separate. But, man, if you're looking for a red zone guy with sure hands, I think he might have better hands than Jennings.
Ooh, okay.
So, and then Ronnie Bell's dad is a college wide receiver coach. And when you watch Ronnie Bell run routes, and he just looks like a 10-year vet. I mean, he looks very veteran-like. So, if it comes right down to it, if you can save a few bucks and go with Ronnie Bell or Tay Martin, and I think, especially now that you've got Niner people in Houston, you got Niner people in Tennessee, you've got Niner people in Washington. You got Niner people in Miami. There's a lot of people who could be huge Juwan Jennings fans all around the league. I think we get down to the cut down, especially if Bell and Tay Martin and Juwan all play well this summer. I think none of those guys slips through waivers. So then it's just a matter of, well, wait a second. Can you trade one of those guys for a day 3 pick?
Yeah.
I could definitely, if you told me fast forward a month and now it's August 19th and they all look good in camp, I could see, Rand Carthon calling John Lynch and saying, hey, we'll give you a 6th-round pick for Juwan Jennings. Absolutely, I could. And I think if Ronnie Bell and Tay Martin are on the same level as Juwan, because Juwan's in his last year with the Niners, I don't think there's any question about it. It would take an extraordinary performance from Juwan Jennings to get the Niners to re-up him before free agency. So I don't know if I see that. And as much as I like Juwan and have great respect for him, if Ronnie Bell and Tay Martin play well, I think they're probably going to take Juwan's job, and Juwan might be pawned for a pick. That's the way I see it.
I can see that. And the thing is, you're right, because the 49ers, I think that wide receiver battle is probably going to be one of the most entertaining in camp because of what you just said. There's so many young, talented players that are hungry that could take that next step. And you're absolutely right, is if they were to cut one of those guys, they're not going to go to the practice squad. They're going to get claimed by someone. So if the 49ers want to get something out of one of those guys, they can trade him. Now, the guy that I'm not going to say I'm skeptical about him, but he still has a lot to prove, is Danny Gray. And I know a lot of people are expecting bigger things from him this year. I still think there's things he has to work on. Last year he was a rookie, and Kyle, for his receivers, he really wants you to be physical. He needs you to be stronger and learn how to block. So I still think this is another developing year for him, and he has to make the most of those opportunities. So I kind of put Danny Gray in that group that you had. I think Jennings makes it easy, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 with Ray being your special teamer. I mean, Ray is going to give you so much value because of the special teams. Now, if those other guys step up and they show they can do what Ray does, then, yeah, you got some competition there. But I still want to see a little bit more out of Danny Gray. Like, yes, he's a great vertical threat, but I have to see it from him more consistently. And, again, he needs to be physical because that's what Kyle wants. He wants you to block, right? No block, no rock. So, I don't know. I still think Danny Gray has a lot to prove. But overall,
he only had one catch, right? I think there's no doubt he's got a lot to prove. Yeah. But I just think when you look at what he does, 187 says Gray's gone.
Oh, that's way premature.
Oh, I'm just saying, you never know, man. Like,
no, I hear you. I don't think people realize, if you watch the All 22 and you watch a team that has a vertical threat, and you see what the impact of that is on the coverage, and you see the way teams defend teams that have a receiver that can run by them. Heck, have you watched the Netflix thing, the football, the quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
Did you see the episode 3 or 4 when Mahomes was like, "Hey, Gibson came firing up, and I decided I was going over the top"?
Yep, I saw that.
Well, I mean that's a perfect example. Now I didn't blame the Niners for the way they defended Mahomes. I kind of agreed with it, right? You got to pick your poison. You're going to play a loose shell and let him complete passes underneath all day and keep your defense on the field, or you're going to challenge him and play aggressively and bring your safeties up and dare him to throw it over the top of your head. But once he saw that, I think he was like, whoa, everybody else plays us this way. The Niners are playing us that way, and we're going to take some shots down the field. Yeah. Okay, but if you don't have a vertical threat receiver, it's hard to do that. And that's the one thing. The Danny Gray is a vertical threat wide receiver. He ran 4.33, but if you look at the way he runs, he plays more like a 4.25 guy. I mean, he's a burner.
He's
major burner. And it just creates more room. And if you watch the All 22, you can see all that room. And I just think that you've got Kittle, Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey. You've got the majority of your weapons are operating in the short and intermediate. Yeah. So Danny Gray, and I've talked to Shanahan about this before. It's like there's real value in having a guy that can run by you, so that safeties have to play you honest. So they're not just in this leaning forward mode. So they're almost like leaning on their heels because they're worried about the vertical guy running by them. I think if you cut Gray, you get defended way differently. So I think Gray is going to be here. But you're right. It's go time for him. He made one catch. You got to do more than that. But I still have that thought of Trey Lance going up top in the Green Bay preseason game.
Yeah, we all do. And even in training camp, because there was times where Danny Gray was turning heads. I remember the joint practice was in Minnesota last year, and he makes this spectacular sideline grab, and you're like, oh my God. So we know he has those capabilities, and you're absolutely right. It creates more space in the offense, and it makes defenses have to play us a little bit more honest. But the thing, like, my issue is with Shanahan, maybe it's not with other coaches, but Shanahan, like, he won't even give this guy an opportunity if he can't be a physical guy and show that. So if he can be a willing blocker and show that early in camp, then yeah, he'll get those opportunities, and then he just has to make the most of them. And I think the other issue is he's just got to be able to separate a little bit more consistently against those DBs, because you can have speed, but if you can't separate early and utilize that speed, then you're no good. Your speed is no good. So I agree with what you said, Larry, is he does have that ability to stretch the field and create more space, but he's got to, like you said, hone his craft, and it's go time. I want to see Danny Gray be that I love seeing 70-yard touchdowns. Are you kidding me? That's like so much fun, but I hope he makes a big improvement this year. I hope he bulked up. It'll be interesting to see.
He's definitely a little stronger.
Okay.
I saw him in minicamp, and he's definitely a little stronger upper body, a little stronger on the legs.
Yeah.
But I like Danny Gray, and I'm expecting Danny Gray to be a major bust-out guy for the Niners this summer. What do you think of this one? The Car God says, Larry, Robbie Gould told Matt Mayoko that Kyle Shanahan was bringing him back, but that Gould never got any offers. So is Kyle and the owner not on the same page or not on the same terms? What do you make on this one? The Niners are in their Super Bowl window. I look at it this way, and tell me if you think I'm seeing it the right way. Once the Niners went with Hargrave, I think that pretty much meant that they had to go cheap in some other areas. Yeah. And, Robbie Gould, even if he was coming back, he wasn't coming back for anything less than $4 million a year. And they're not paying Moody $4 million. So, but then you look at the fact that Robbie Gould's still out there, and the Niners are still in their championship window. There's, and he's a leader on the team. What do you think? Is there any chance at all that Robbie Gould comes back for a lesser deal
and the Niners trade Jake Moody?
So I see this.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, that's a good question because I saw that report, and Mayoko said, and Robbie Gould, he said he never even got an offer, and he wanted to come back. But I think two things is, yeah, they wanted to save money. You're right. Hargrave came in. That took a big signing, a lot of money to sign him in, and they still got to figure out the Bosa, and there's a lot of money. What did we open up with to start the show? Is there's a lot of players that are getting paid a lot of money. What did you say? 190 million next year tied to those 9 players.
Yeah.
Robbie Gould, he's not going to come in for pennies. He's a veteran kicker. He's probably going to make $4 million a year. And I think the 49ers realize, okay, if we bring in Gould, that's maybe 2 more years. Where if we can go get Moody, he could be a franchise kicker for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And initially in those first few years, we're going to save a lot of money. Now, they know that Robbie Gould, he said it, he's still interested to come on the team. So if things aren't working right with Moody, they can call him up and say, hey, look, we made a mistake. We'll pay you your money. You can come back if they absolutely need to. But I think the 49ers said, hey, look, we'll save some money. We got this young buck, Jake Moody. And if he can be, consistent for us and continue to develop as a kicker, we're going to save money. And we got a guy for at least 4 years. Whereas Robbie Gould, there's uncertainty. He's getting older. He did have some injuries towards the end of his career. And he's amazing. Clutch in the playoffs. Like, we know he's dependable. But you get 2 years max out of him, and that's it. And you save money, and you get a guy for a longer, period of time. I think that's really what it boiled down to. There's no disrespect to Robbie. I think Kyle saw, hey, we can save a few dollars, and we can get a guy for a longer amount of time. That's it.
TZ said, by the way, the last time the Niners did win the Super Bowl, they had a rookie kicker. It was Doug Bryan from Cal in 1994 season when they won the Super Bowl. It's hard to believe. 28 years it has been since the 49ers won the Super Bowl. 28 years. That's hard to believe. That is hard to believe that 1994 was 28 years ago. It seems like yesterday. It's frustrating, too, in some ways. Teasy says, I think we're going to miss Robbie Gould's consistency. Greg Escon says Gould's leg was tarnishing the 49ers. 49ers were wise, or diminishing, maybe he meant to say. 49ers were wise to move on before he became fool's gold. Look at that. Look at that, Greg.
That's a good pun. I think so. I love the guy, but is he 40 years old? At 40 years old, you're going to start to slow down. Those 40-yard kicks become 30-yard kicks. I don't know. Maybe we're going to see. We're going to see if it was the right.
Never missed in the playoffs.
I know.
Never missed in the playoffs. John V says, I hated to see Robbie go, but if Javon Hargrave is the deal breaker, I'm sorry, Robbie. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at it as well. And I think Robbie's a tremendous kicker, and there's something about having a kicker that's never missed in the playoffs that makes you go, we can, if we can just get to this yard line, we've got a money kick. And the way he hit that one in Green Bay and turned around like he was Steph Curry before it even went through was that was pretty incredible. And when I did an interview with him at the end of the year, I asked him, I said, hey, is it tough being out here on the West Coast? And his family was with him this year. But, they're living out of a hotel or something, and it's like you got 3 boys, and he's got 3 boys that are getting older. It sounded like he wanted to kick for the Bears or kick in the Midwest somewhere close to Chicago. But now here it is, July 19th, and he's still unsigned. Makes you wonder. If he's going to find his way back. And then the Niners invested such a high pick in Jake Moody. Is somebody really going to give you a 3rd-round pick for Jake Moody? Probably not. So you're probably going to wind up looking bad if you move on from Jake Moody.
100%. I think they're pot committed to Jake Moody. You draft him that high, you got to stick and see what happens. You can't look stupid if you get rid of him. And I think you're right. I think the family situation with Robbie, maybe the 49ers thought, hey, we're going to do you a favor so you can go up north, be closer to your family, because that was tough. Living out of a hotel, traveling every week, you really weren't seeing your family. So, that's the life of an NFL player. But, it was tough having his family here and they live elsewhere. So, at the end of the day, Robbie, and I love the guy. There's no disrespect. I'm not happy that he's gone because just like most Niner fans, when they, basically parted ways with him and they said he's in a test free agency, I was like, oh man, he gave us a lot of good years, never missed. He was a team captain a few years ago. He was actually had the C patch. I was like, wow, special team kicker as your captain. You can tell this guy meant a lot to the team. Players looked up to him. Tabor Peppers spoke highly of him. I've talked to him many times, and he was like, this guy was truly a captain of the team. And the stare down with Jalen Ramsey, what other kicker in the league is going to go toe-to-toe with All-Pro Jalen Ramsey, and he's your kicker. I love the guy. I'm gonna miss him, but it's Jake Moody's season. I'm excited to see what he can bring for us. I mean, they drafted him high, so he better live up to the billing.
Seriously, Clarsard 49 says we're getting a 7th for Zane Gonzalez, so we're basically offsetting the trade. That's the other thing. There's a lot of speculation that, the Niners will be able to move Zane Gonzalez, who's a very dependable veteran kicker in his own right, for a day 3 pick at the cut down, which, is kind of there. That's another way to build up your depth is I could see the Niners making 2-3 trades this summer that send guys that aren't going to make the roster elsewhere and maybe net them conditional day 3 picks in round 6 or 7. And you do that 2 or 3 times, suddenly you wind up with 4 7th-round picks. I think right now the 49ers are handling the draft and free agency as well as any team in football. Why? Because look what they do. They let a ton of money walk out the door. And they took the compensatory picks in return. So then they're building more in the draft. And then what they're doing in free agency is instead of signing a bunch of guys, they're building their team through the draft. So they have a younger, healthier team. And then they're only going after premier free agents, Javon Hargrave, Mooney Ward, guys that aren't going to upset your chemistry if they walk into the room making more than the other guys. But if you sign a bunch of mediocre guys, and then there's guys in the room going, hey, man, you drafted me, and I've been giving you blood, sweat, and tears for 3-4 seasons, and then you just signed some mediocre donkey from the Panthers or whatever, and you're paying him more than me. I think that's how you kind of ruin your chemistry in the salary cap era. I think Lynch is a former player, and Shanahan, I think these guys are really cognizant of the fact that you need to supplement. You need to build your team through the draft and supplement it through free agency. But that free agency can be fool's gold and can ruin your chemistry if you get too many guys who are kind of even. So instead you go, we'll go get Charvarius Ward. Well, okay, what corner is going to sit there and tell you that they should be getting paid over Charvarius? Nobody in the room. And what D lineman's going to tell you, hey, you know what? I don't like Javon Hargrave. It's like these guys are better. And so it's okay if you pay better players at the top of the scale. To win a competitive bidding situation in free agency, you often have to overpay anyway. So if you're going to overpay, you might as well overpay for the best guys and not hurt your chemistry.
Yeah, no, they do a really good job of developing talent. Like you said, like we'll get these players. Drake Greenlaw, perfect example. He was a 5th-round pick. Quan Alexander was the big guy. He just kind of didn't pan out. He had the injury. So, boom, Drake comes in. You're like, oh, wow. And they develop talent. They have guys that can step in. And then, every now and again, if they need to get a premier position, like cornerback was a position we really needed some nice depth. And they go get a guy like Mooney Ward, who he wasn't the greatest, player, but he was like up there. He was kind of close to breaking out. So I feel like they get guys close to that top tier that are kind of underrated. And they want to prove themselves. They got a chip on their shoulder, right? Javon Hargrave. A lot of people are saying, he's a product of all those great linemen on Philly. And now he's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder and prove, like, I'm actually that good. Like, I'm going to prove that I'm, the guy that they need to answer the question to help Nick Bosa. So they do a really good job of getting the players they need in free agency and then supplementing with young talent. Because now we got players that are in their 2nd, 3rd year that you're like, oh, man, he can be a star, and we know Dre Greenlaw now, he might be a Pro Bowler this year, and it took him a couple of years, and they got him late, and then players like Juwan Jennings, like we talked about, who I think can have a phenomenal year for this team. He was a 7th-round pick, so they do a really good job. Diamaro Lenore, he's going to be your cornerback, too. He was a 5th-round pick, right? He kind of went up the rankings. You got Mooney Ward, and now you got a nice, solid cornerback duo there if he could pan out and continue where he was in the playoffs. So overall, the 49ers, I think they have a really good grasp on how to build a team. It took them a couple of years, but they scout well. That Adam Peters, you got to throw him too. We gave Lynch and Shanahan their credit, but give some credit to Adam Peters, man. That guy is a scout among scouts. I love this front office, and they've done a good job. We've gotten 2 out of the last 3 years. We get to the NFC Championship, made a Super Bowl. They're close. They're knocking on the door, so they must be doing something right.
Couple chats here I want to get to. This one's interesting from Young Dick Dong, which is a nice handle. He says, when is Kyle Shanahan going to be on the chopping block? And this one makes me laugh. I mean, Seriously? I mean, who seriously thinks that Kyle Shanahan is or even should be on the chopping block? I would love to debate that with anybody at any time, anywhere. You know, I mean, seriously. I get the idea. If you want to say that Kyle Shanahan is not that you want to attack him or say that, he's not this or he's not that, I'll listen to your argument. But you're talking to people that were here for the Chip Kelly era, who can remember Joan from Payroll being referenced by Jim Tomsula, who we've lived through some really bad coaches. The 49ers have been in the NFC Championship game in 3 of the last 4 years. You're really going to talk about Kyle Shanahan on the chopping block? I'll say this. The 49ers would have to backslide tremendously. All the quarterbacks would have to bomb. And then you might see Kyle be a year or two away from feeling some heat. I don't think there's any heat on Kyle. I don't think Jed's bringing any heat on him. I don't think the fans are. I don't think the media is. I don't think anybody should. I think Kyle Shanahan, and believe me, you're talking to a guy who goes into the room and talks to the players. I talk to them on the record. I talk to them off the record. I got a really good handle for the room. There's nobody whispering in the corner of the room, the head coach has got to go. No, never. It's never happened. And I'd be willing to put it out there that it's not only not been my experience, they haven't said that to anybody. The other thing I always look for in coaches, does a team play hard?
Yeah.
I think the 49ers play hard for Kyle Shanahan. Now, whether it's for Kyle Shanahan or under Kyle Shanahan, I guess you could debate that. But ultimately, I don't think they emotionally no-show games. I can't think of maybe 1 or 2 games where I felt like in this entire regime where I felt like they weren't at peak, optimal, emotional readiness. So that's what I'm looking at. Does on your side of the ball, his side of the ball is offense. If you're an offensive coach, does your offense work? Does it produce points? If you're a defensive coach, does your defense work? Do you keep teams down? And then I look for, what's the morale like in your room? How do guys feel about, do they have confidence in you? Do they believe in you? If you want a team, players, they don't have to believe. They're getting paid. They don't have to believe in you. So you always have to sell your program to your players. But Raj, I'm there. I listen to what the players say. They believe in Kyle Shanahan. Yeah. They believe in his offense.
I know.
On both sides of the ball. I've never heard anybody who was like, you know what? Don't quote me on this, but the guy in charge, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
No.
Never. Not once. Nobody's ever insinuated that. To me, when I see how hard they play and the results, I got to push back in a hard way on young Dick Dong here with his when's Kyle going to be on the chopping block? Hopefully not for a long, long freaking time.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day,
give me your perspective.
Fans get frustrated, right? Because they've gotten so close, and they say Kyle's choke. He can't win the big one. He's gotten close. Like Andy Reid, and I use this comparison so many times. Before he was a Super Bowl winning coach and the guy that everybody says is the guru, he went to the Super Bowl. He went to the NFC Championship every year, and he failed. And they said he's terrible. It takes time to finally get over the hump and figure out what you need to do to get over the hump. It's not easy to win games. And the last 2 years, the Kyle and the Niners, they were sitting at, under 500, and they turn around and went on big, massive winning streak. So for all the bad people want to give him, they don't give him enough credit for all the hard work he's done. When he took over this team in 2017, the roster. This roster was so bad. He's been a big part of why they've had the players that they have. His coaching philosophy, the Debos, the Kittles, the short yardage yak type offense, CMC, and all these guys. Look at the running backs he gets out of the 7th round, undrafted. Or look at all the running backs he's turned into, Matt Breida. Nobody knew who a Matt Breida was. He made him relevant, and Raheem Mostert and all these guys, he's turned into something that were nobody or nothing, right? You know the stories. And I got to give Kyle a lot of credit, man. He's worked with like I said, when he took over this team, I mean, Lewis Murphy was your wide receiver one. Are you kidding me? Like, they had nobody, and he's kind of cultivated this culture, like we talked about, this developing roster with young players and good free agents. The players absolutely love him. Like you said, I've heard nothing but good from the players. And it's also not only that, but John Lynch has a good rapport with them. Owner John York, or Jed York loves him. So at the end of the day, he's not on the chopping block until the owner loses faith in him. And I think, yeah, maybe in the next 2 years, if they're underachieving and they don't make it to the playoffs and they're struggling and with this roster, then yeah, throw them on the chopping block, because this team is too talented not to get at least deep into the playoffs. So until he starts underwhelming us and not going to the playoffs, I mean, his job is safe, man. Again, this team was garbage. You mentioned some of the head coaches, Tom Sula, Chip Kelly, even before that, Dennis Erickson. There were some bad coaches. And I know a lot of people bring up Harbaugh because they loved him, but he's not here. He's not walking through those doors. And Kyle has been a hell of a head coach. So I give a little pushback too. And
you got to have a quarterback. You got to have a quarterback. I mean, guess who's on the hot seat? I just read it this morning. Bill Belichick.
Wow.
Bill Belichick's on the hot seat. Why? Because he doesn't have a quarterback. Why was he good in New England? Great New England. Because he had a quarterback. Yeah. Why was he not good in Cleveland? Because he didn't have a quarterback. You got to have a quarterback. I think if you really were fair, you'd say, look, Kyle Shanahan, now you want to criticize him for not being able to get that quarterback. Okay, that's a different debate altogether. But this is a guy who got to a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo and got to an NFC Championship game with Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah. And if he gets big-time quarterback play, I really believe he's going to win a Super Bowl. Yeah. I saw a list the other day. I forget who was making the list, but they had him as a future Hall of Fame coach.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what Andy Reid needed, was a quarterback. It took him, all those years. When he finally got Patrick Mahomes, look at him now. He's winning. You need to have that quarterback and coach duo. Like you said, Jimmy Garoppolo made it to the Super Bowl with Kyle Shanahan. Imagine now if Kyle had Patrick Mahomes. Although he had the opportunity, we're not going to get into that conversation, but I think that's it. If he can get the quarterback for his system, he can get there. I mean, he made Matt Ryan an MVP. That guy was something else under Kyle Shanahan's offense. So I got respect for Kyle. This team is winning. I've been happy these last couple of years, because I'll tell you, those dark days when we were bad, I mean, I was very depressed, Larry. It was very depressed days. So
also, I got to know who you want. It's not just it's like, you remodel a kitchen. Anybody can do the freaking demo. Any jackass with a sledgehammer can bash out some tile. The skilled guy's got to put the thing back together. Yeah. Anybody can tear it down, but you got to build it back up. And it's like, who are you going to get? Who are you going to get? And I've heard people say, go get Ken Dorsey. Okay, I mean, all right. For sure that Ken Dorsey is going to be an upgrade on Kyle Shanahan? I like Ken Dorsey as well. Kenny's a good guy. Miramani down the street. Bay Area guy, smart, done some good things with Josh Allen. Kind of like but how did Buffalo's season end? I mean,
you've seen the clip where Ken Dorsey's throwing the papers, and I'd Ken Dorsey for you. I didn't see Kyle Shanahan throwing his headset down after losing a game. So that's all I got to say. Ken Dorsey, respect, but Kyle, he's still a young coach. Like he's barely 40 years old. He's still learning. Give him time.
I just got to know. If somebody's Dusty Gold says Lincoln Riley's my guy. Okay. Lincoln Riley. Okay. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Anybody who wants to fire Kyle Shanahan, make them give you a name, because it's easy to say this guy sucks. It's way harder to say this guy over here would be much better.
Yeah.
Because then we can start focusing on that guy for a second. And now we can start finding warts with that guy. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, now we're having an actual debate. Yeah. John V says, Riley, my ass. Gregus Khan says, I expect York will extend Shanny in 2024. What's Good says, not fire, but trade him. Yeah. Why? Why are you trading him? And, here's the thing. I don't know if I ever told this story, but I happened to slip into the locker room at the very end of the week 16 game of the final year of Harbaugh, because I think some media relations person was like, yeah, it's okay to go in. So there's like an outside deal, and then there's a hallway, and then the locker room opens. So I start walking through the hallway, and I get to the edge right at the front of the locker room door, and I can see that Jim is calling everybody together for his so the locker room most definitely was not open because they were still talking to the players. And Jim's doing this thing, and guys are looking around, and he dropped the "Who's got it better than us?" And it was like this, like the most half-hearted nobody. It was the most half-hearted nobody I think I'd ever heard. And I remember hearing that going, there's dudes that have tuned this dude out.
He lost the locker room, and I think maybe they knew the writing was on them. They were probably I mean, at the end of the day, they knew the fate that was about to happen, and it's like, I mean, if he's not going to be around, why give him that?
I mean, Harbaugh was great, but I mean, they did great things under Harbaugh. But if there was anybody who was a little bit of a fraud, it was his offense. I mean, he couldn't get plays called. He's a Bo Schembechler disciple.
Well, it was his offensive coordinator. I put a lot on the OC. What's his I hated Greg Roman.
Giro.
Come on, man. You throw 4 fades to Crabtree in the end zone. All you had to do was run it with Frank. That's all I got to say. This guy, it's like they wanted to end with that play. It's like their dream was, we got to have this fade play. And they tried it every single time, and it never worked. I don't know. Every time.
I know. And people are saying, hey, constructive criticism is fine, but not the ridiculous over-the-top stuff. Couple last ones here. Carsard 49 says, Larry Raj, how much longer is the so-called window open? This is another debate. Trey Lance is 23. Some people believe in him, others don't. Brock Purdy's 23. Some people believe in him, some people don't. I would say between the two of those guys, probably one of them is going to be a franchise quarterback. I actually personally think they're both franchise quarterbacks. So since I'm of the belief that two 23-year-old quarterbacks both have the ability to become franchise quarterbacks, I don't think the Niner window is closing anytime soon, especially not when they keep going into free agency for great players. They keep finding good players in the draft. I don't see this ending. I think Lynch and Peters have this going at a really high level on day 3 and after the draft. If they can start hitting on some of their day 1 and day 2 picks and keeping them instead of moving them, I think the 49ers' success it's not going to go forever, but I just read you a list of the top players on the team. All those guys are relatively young. Only Trent Williams is even approaching the end, in my opinion. Everybody else has got 2-3 seasons left. The window is always short in the NFL, so nothing lasts forever. I thought Bowman and Willis were going to go on forever, and that ended prematurely. So you never know, and you never stop rebuilding. But I don't think the Niner window, I do not subscribe to the theory that this is it. They get it done this year, or that's it. I don't buy that. I don't buy it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see them not being able to compete. Like I said, with this roster, with Kyle, he puts them in a good position. John Lynch, like you said, and Adam Peters, they do a good job of retooling. I mean, there's a lot of young talent they're going to continue to develop. I think this team, as long as they have this regime and they consistently build this roster like they have, they're always going to have some of the best players at every position. Hufunga's young. He's entering his prime. You know, a lot of these players are just hitting their prime. So you got to suspect you have at least 3 years with most of these guys. You know, obviously CMC, you know, maybe 2 more prime years. I mean, Debo's still relatively young and in a good position. Brandon Ayuk is just kind of entering the peak of his powers. Nick Bosa, you know, he's going to be there for quite a couple years with entering his prime. So it's hard to really say this window is going to close, you know, anytime soon. But if we want to put a number on it, sure, I'll be that guy to say maybe in 3 years, okay, they're going to have to retool a little bit and make sure they replace a guy like, you know, Fred Warner when he's a little bit older. You know, maybe they got to replace the Trent Williams and to give you one more year of, okay, maybe you might not be.
You just got to keep hitting in the draft.
Yeah, you just got to hit in the draft. So I'll give you 3 years because I don't know if Trent Williams is going to be here after maybe this year, next year. And Fred Warner, after 3 more years, how much more is he going to give you this team? You know, and, you know, Armstead, is he going to be around for another 3 more years? So I'll give you 3 years, Larry. And then it's not really a rebuild; it's just a retool.
No, I hear you. I tend to agree. I tend to agree. What's good says as long as Bosa's here, we will be competitive.
There you go.
Dusty says youth is on their side.
Yes, sir.
Number of interesting ones here. All right, a couple more that I want to get to, and then I got one main question for you. A couple supers here I want to throw out. David Muschek, precipice of 20,000 subs, Krug. Bring it home. Let me check the ticker. Where are we at? We're at 19,967 subs.
Close. You close. 20K by training camp.
33 away. Is that right? 33? 30,
yeah.
70, 30. Yeah. There you go. SI Education. 33 away. 33 subs away. So if you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please hit like. Please hit subscribe. Subscribe to Raj's channel as well. Raj is blowing up on the IG. Where are you on the IG these days?
Man, this off season I stayed kind of dormant, so I'm still at 247K. But
247,000 on IG.
But I've been
dormant. My goodness, that's 250,000. You got 250,000 people that you can motivate. You're like a Kim Kardashian.
I don't know. If
you're an influencer.
I don't know if I'm as built like Kardashian, but I'll take the compliment, Larry. I'll take
but that's cooking. And where are you on YouTube?
We're still around 10K. Yeah.
10K, but that's you've only been doing that since how long?
I mean, like 6 months, and then like I said,
6 months.
These last couple months, I just been dormant. I just been busy and working, but season's coming up. We ready to roll.
Look at Raj. Raj is messing around getting a triple double.
That's
Darren D says $4.99. Just to say Darren D.
Darren D. Man.
There you go. Fist in the air for Darren D. Is that your truck, Darren?
It's a cool truck.
You ever drive an 18-wheeler?
No, I don't think I plan on. I mean, I've drove like U-Haul, those big U-Hauls, but I've never drove an 18-wheeler. That's scary driving those.
That is scary. You gotta know your angles.
Yeah,
I wasn't good enough in geometry. Car God says Jake Moody college field goal percentage was 81%. Robbie Gould's pro percentage is 87.9%. That puts that's a vote for Robbie.
Pressure's on.
Okay, the question, the title of the stream was, who will surprise us most this summer in 49er camp? So why don't we get to that? Okay. What do you think, Raj? But Charlie Higgs says, Raj is humble. Look at this. Dusty Gold says, Raj is racking in the cash.
At work, yeah. I've been working like 8 hours a week there, just working. I worked so much, I got sick a couple weeks ago.
El Camilo, really? Sick? Yeah. How sick?
I was pretty down and out, but I'm better, but I was just working myself too much.
El Camilo says 20,000 subs for Larry in a year. Grant got 65 subs in 5 years. Hey, let's not put Grant down. Grant helped me get started in this thing. I got great respect for Grant, for Lowell. Love that guy. When I was at my lowest, I went and talked to Grant, and he was like, built me up and said, hey, brother, I believe in you. This is the path. So, you know what? I thank him. I thank him all the time, and I continue to thank him. And I'll just say this. Just because somebody puts stuff out and you feel like you got a good handle on their content doesn't really mean that you know the person. Mm-hmm. You know, Grant's a really good person, and has helped me immeasurably. And, I got his back forever. Mm-hmm. El Camilo Dorado, though, appreciate the comment, the nice, kind words. But, yeah, no, Grant's cooking. And,
he grinds. I've met him. He's a good guy behind the scenes. And you too, man. So I love working with you, Larry. I got a lot of respect because you're a big-time guy in the market, and you always give me respect. You always hype me up. Like, just a few minutes, you hype me up.
Oh, dude.
I'm telling you, it's been a long couple months, and it's always, I always have a lot of respect for you and appreciate your support. Coming on a show like this, it's big time for me. So
my kid used to say to me, Dad, man, you got to hook up with Raj. Raj is the man. And then we started hooking up, and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Now I got my kid producing. Did I show you my kid's new open? You weren't here for the open.
I missed it, yeah.
Watch this one. It's only 10 seconds.
And
for those of you who saw the open before, you're going to have to endure it one more time. Here we go. This is a Kevin Krueger production, the new open to the show. Here, first of all, the old open. Here's the old open. The old open. But now the new open is tight. It's tight. Here we go. Here's the new open. Let me get this comment off the screen so you get the full effect. Dusty Gold says Raj doesn't take vacations, Larry. Thank you, Dusty. Pouring salt in there. All right, here's the intro. The new Kevin Krueger and Hendricks kind of sound to it.
I need to hire your son to get me some graphics going. That's pretty impressive, man. That's good.
Seriously. Kev Krueger is hustling. I even got my 14-year-old on some of my. You know what I've been putting up more of, Raj? I've been doing more IG reels and TikTok reels, and
I came across a few. Yeah.
And you know what? They're getting like. Now it's not the same deal as far as money and that kind of thing, but we're getting like. That was like 30,000 views of one of these things. That's a lot of. That's pretty good. I mean, my 14-year-old's putting them together.
Once the season comes, just be consistent with those, and they'll start taking off. They just got to hit the algorithm, and all you got to do is just be consistent with it, and it'll blow up. Yeah.
That's what my kid said. My kid's like, "Hey, Dad, one of these is going to blow up, and like 150,000 people are going to watch it, and it's gonna be awesome for the channel."
That's all it takes. Yeah.
That's all it takes. All right, who will surprise us most this summer in Niner camp? We'll finish with this. Who do you, we can all say, Trey Lance, Brock Purdy, Nick Bosa, Drake Jackson, but those guys aren't really surprises, right? A surprise would be if Kalen Laburn became their starting number one running back, or Robert Beal started opposite Nick Bosa, or, you know what I'm saying? Give me a somebody in camp that you think is going to be one of the who's going to surprise us this summer in camp.
So I got a couple of names for you. I got offensive line. I think Nick Zakelj is going to
be. I love that one.
I have a really good feeling. He's smart. I just seen him.
Fordham.
Fordham guy. I think Nick
good guy.
A very good depth player. He's going to kind of come into it. He might not start. He's not going to do much, but in the preseason, I could see him being a guy that we're like, oh, I like Zakelj. He's giving good film. So I see Nick Zakelj being a guy. And I'm going to continue to hammer this guy. May not be a big surprise for some people, but Jordan Mason, man, I think his passing abilities have improved. Kyle Shanahan really wants these guys to catch passes out of the backfield. And the issue with the 49ers running back committee is injuries. And I think Jordan Mason is going to continue to make the most of his opportunities and rise up that depth chart. I got Jordan Mason be a high riser. And then on defense, not a lot of people are talking about this guy because I think he's getting overshadowed by Drake Jackson, and as he should, because there's a lot of, pressure for him to be good. I think Clelin Ferrell is going to be a guy that's going to really turn heads. I think Clelin Ferrell's going to be a standout. I have a good feeling about Clelin because Chris Kasurek really gets the most out of those D linemen. That's a guy I've kind of kept an eye on, and I'm like, I think he's going to really impress in the offseason. I think he's really going to carve a role because you got to realize there's a lot of snaps to replace between Omenahu, Samson Ebicam, and Jordan Willis. Somebody's got to take those snaps, and I think Clelin's going to do a lot of good in the offseason, and he's going to really carve out a role for him. So those are the guys that I kind of see really being surprises that aren't being mentioned.
Yeah, I'm going to go with, there's so many interesting ones. I love Marcelino McCrary-Ball and Jalen Graham. Okay. I think both those guys just looked really good in the offseason. I also thought Womack looked incredible. And I just think Womack has a chance to really be special. Deshaun Jameson and Womack, I think both looked really good to me. Jameson was always around the ball. And then those two backers, Graham and Marcelino. And then I'm a big fan of Spencer Wagee from North Dakota State. I just think that he's got potential. Now, I don't know exactly how it's going to shake out, but to me, he looks like the kind of guy that might be able to play defensive end on first and second down in the base. This guy went undrafted. So to me, that guy right there. It's not just that, he's 300 pounds. So you think defensive end, 300 pounds and a 4.3, get up the field front. I know, but the hand usage, the hand placement, the get off, he's got the same 10-yard split as Aldon Smith had coming out. And then I watched him in minicamp, and it's like, this guy's got pass rush moves. I mean, for a 300-pound guy, he really looks like a defensive end. I'm really excited to see what he looks like. Also, the motor on him. When McCaffrey was motoring down the field, 30, 40 yards doing his Jerry Rice, Roger Craig impersonations, Wagy's chasing him down. I mean, he's 35, 40 yards down the field. I mean, so the kid's got hustle. He's got a motor. He's got a little bit better hand placement than you would think. I see him more as an end than a tackle, to be honest. If he could lean out to like 290, I think he's about 295, something like that. If he could get down to 285, 290, I think he might be a really good defensive end for the 49ers. So I think they're a little thin at defensive end, and I just think that there's potential for that guy to, like, let's say some of these other, they don't have the depth. That they lost Ebukam, they lost Willis, they lost Amenahue. Let's say they want to limit Drake Jackson's snaps. Okay, so maybe you don't have Drake on first and second down. Maybe you play Waggy on first and second down, and you let Drake come in with Farrell and other guys in a rotation and minimize his snaps a little bit so you can maximize his production in those snaps. I could see Waggy being a key guy for them. We'll see. I mean, it's a deep, deep pull because I realize he's an undrafted free agent. He played tackle in college and end, but and I'm projecting him as a defensive end opposite Nick Bosa on one of the NFL's best defensive lines. Wow. It's a huge projection. It's a gigantic swing for the fence, but I love that kid. I love what I've seen, and a couple times I'm on I'm literally watching it. I'm not binoculars, but I'm literally watching it from like 2 fields away, and this guy's standing out to me from 2 fields away. So watch number 69, Spencer Waggy.
I'll keep an eye on him. You never know. Like you said, with the lack of depth at defensive end, he might sneak around. He might mess around and catch a roster spot. But because I don't know if Austin Bryant's going to make a roster spot. I really don't. And it's kind of relatively thin. So we'll see. At the worst case scenario, this guy could be a practice squad guy and they get called up. Because really, defensive end, it's thin. And that's going to be quite an interesting battle this training camp. Yeah.
I'll tell you, if Cleveland Farrell, wouldn't that be something for the Raiders if Arden Key comes here and is better with the Niners and the Raiders, and then he leaves, gets paid, and now Cleveland Farrell comes here? What if Cleveland Farrell played like a first-round draft choice with the Niners when he never played that way with the Raiders?
I really think that he can, and that's why I used him as my one of my guys. I have this feeling because who the hell is going to take those snaps? There's a lot of snaps that they have to replace with
700.
That's a lot. Yeah, 700 snaps. If he can kind of get the technique down, I mean, he's not horrible. He was a first-round pick. Obviously, he probably was overdrafted. But you have Javon Hargrave. You have Arik Armstead. You have Nick Bosa. Who the hell is going to be covering Cleveland Farrell when
he's getting one-on-one?
He's going to get one-on-ones. He's going to have some easy lanes sometimes. So I think this guy is probably going to get 6-7 sacks. And if we can get 6-7 sacks out of this guy, I'll take it. Man.
He's got a motor. He's got a good motor. By the way, guess how many sacks the Niners' second best sack man had this year?
Wasn't it like 5 or 6?
5. Yeah. Samson Ebukam.
Yeah, Ebukam had 5.
Nobody got more than 5 sacks outside of Bosa.
That's sick.
That's unbelievable. Here's the other stat that jumped out to me. Guess how many receptions 49er tight ends had last year that weren't named George Kittle?
I'm going to say maybe 10. I don't think
7.
I was close. I didn't see anybody catches up Kittle last year.
7?
Crazy.
All year?
Yeah.
Come on.
It's no wonder they drafted 2 tight ends. Yeah.
Which leads us to Michael Alanis here. And Michael, I'm with you on this one. He says, Braden Willis will be a surprise and become Kittle's running mate. He will be the 49ers' number 2 tight end. Michael Alanis is a genius. He's right. Braden Willis, mark it down. Tight end 2.
Book it.
Right, book it.
We'll see.
Put it on the board. Yes.
Yeah.
And J-Tan says, Jordan Mason next level. Oh, look at Klarsard. Look at Klarsard trying to look at this one. Saguna Luby was our guy, Larry. All right. You win some, you lose some. Damn you, Klarsard, with your memory.
Yeah, you can't
How
win them
dare
all.
you remember that I was a
Yeah.
big Saguna Luby guy?
Yeah.
I was. What can I say? All right, that's going to do it for us. Raj, what do you got cooking the rest of the week? We got camp. We got rookies reporting yesterday. Camp starting. What's the first practice? Do we know?
So they report Tuesday, but the first open practice is Wednesday. I don't know how much they're going to be.
What's that? The 25th.
26th Wednesday.
26th.
25th, the veterans report. I'm not sure what, I'm sure it's orientation day. My guess is Nick Bosa will be putting the pen to paper. They're going to announce on Monday. And I think with the veterans coming there, what better time than to put the pen to paper and get Nick Bosa signed to his.
Here's the last question. When the Niners sign Bosa, it's going to create somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 to $8-9 million of extra cap room. Will the Niners sign a veteran defensive end in addition to extending Bosa? Will they not just sign Bosa, but will they sign Bosa and bring in Melvin Ingram or Houston or Ngakwe, Pierre Paul? Will they bring in another veteran edge in addition to when they redo Bosa?
I think it's definitely a possibility because they're going to have more money. But I can see that being like a mid-season type thing where they bring in someone. I think they want to really see what they have out of their guys. Drake, I think they really want to see how he's coming in this year because there's a lot of expectations on him. Clellan Ferrell, Austin Bryant, they did bring him in this offseason. So I think they're going to really see what they have out there. Maybe Waggy, like you said, those type of guys. And then if they're not happy after, training camp as preseason comes in, maybe they could sign a guy that can kind of catch up to speed. A veteran, they don't need a lot of seasoning, just got to get up to speed. Or they do it right immediately when they go in San Bosa. So I think they really are going to figure that out pretty quickly here. But they also might need to get a defensive back here because I know Luther went on PUP, so he might miss a couple weeks. So
do we have any idea what that's for, what the deal is with that? No.
They didn't really specify yet. I'm sure Kyle will update us next week. So we'll kind of, I don't think it's going to be serious, but if he's going to miss time, they're going to need to get the roster spot, right? So they might do that. They did that last year with, who was the undrafted Leon O'Neal. He got the
guy who guaranteed he was going to make the team at A&M.
Yeah. And then they cut him because he got an injury, reached in it, but they brought in, I can't remember who they brought in, but they brought in a safety, and so that's how training camp is. You get these nagging injuries and they can't wait around. You just got to bring somebody in to get those roster spots in for preseason and training camp. So we'll see. I think it's possible that they bring in a veteran though, if they really feel uncomfortable with the guys they have, but I think they're happy with who they have, but we're going to find out real quick.
I'd feel so much better if they had one more edge rusher. I'd feel a lot better. Raj, blowing up. RSF 49ers blowing up. 10,000 on YouTube. 250,000 on the IG. Look at that guy. Look at him. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. Wait a second. We build him. We put him bigger on here. Look at that guy. There, 250,000
Look at
subs.
This guy left of me. Larry, get him to 20K on YouTube. Run him up. Let's get this guy 20K. That's my guy.
Raj, have a great week, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Do, man. Take care.
There you go. The great Raj. RSF 49ers. Raj is blowing up. Absolutely blowing up. And he produces a lot of great content. John V says Raj is a big deal. He's a big deal. Cheeseball says, where do you get that Niner logo on your wall? Which one? Which one are you referring to? The one right behind me came from the UK. This one over here, no, over there, that's a UK flag. This one right here, that one, that's from Breezy, Nitty Gritty Niners. So I got all kinds of flags. People are sending me flags. Dusty Gold says, Larry, you'll get there. You'll get there. Thank you. I appreciate that. Gregus Khan says, Yannick Ngakwe wants $10 million. I don't see it. I don't know if he's going to get 10 mil, Gregus. I think the price tag is about 5 right now for those guys. 5? If a guy like Yannick's willing to come for 5, how fired up would you be if the Niners not only got Bosa, but got Ngakwe for 5? Could happen. I'm not saying it's going to, but it could. John V says faithful UK are some great dudes. Oh yeah, love the UK guys. Love the UK guys. All right, let's thank our sponsors, and then my wife's calling me. It's time for dinner. I got to go eat something. Been on live streaming with Breezy and with Raj tomorrow. Lombardi, Jesse Naylor, and Vish. It's going to be a lot going on for sure. Let's thank our sponsors. Bottom of the screen, Marin Autoglass, 415-883-3030, marinautoglass.com. You're driving down the street. You get a pebble that hits the windshield. You need it changed out. Just give them a call. Go to marinautoglass.com. They'll pop out the old one, glaze in a new one, sweep away the glass, come wherever you're at. And bingo bango, you're taken care of. My man Saeed runs a great business, Marin Autoglass, great sponsor of the Krug Show. Also, we're brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage. The best sausage in all of the country is New York Style Italian Sausage. Dusty Gold says, the boss is calling. Exactly. The boss is calling. It's time for dinner. And thanks to Pig in a Pickle, the title sponsor of the Krug Show. If you notice, every single time we do a video, every single time we tweet about the show, we include Pig in a Pickle, 2 locations, Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open in both spots 7 days a week. Just talked to the owner last night. He says, we're back open 7 days a week in Emeryville, Krug. So there we go. It used to be Wednesday through Sunday. Now it's 7 days a week. Both locations, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out, so get there soon. Here's what they look like in Marin County. Check them out.
So New York Style Sausage was started over 7 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York Style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York Style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krug Show. Once again, we are at 19,968 subs. We are getting close to 20,000. 32 subs away from 20,000. Thanks to all of you. Special thanks to my sons and of course the great Len Dempsey, Grant Cohn, and all the people that have really helped me grow this channel over the last year. I appreciate every single one of you. Clarsard49 says, my grandma is a big Krug Show fan, Larry. Grandma Clarsard. Yes. We got Grandma Clarsard in the house. Woo! Fired up about that. We got this one from Dusty Gold. You should have a Pasquale flag up. There you go. Oh, man. What is it? Charlie Higgs. Oh, wait, we got third string all pro says studio sausage. What if at the end of each show I just bit off a big piece of sausage? Get your New York sausage. Dusty Gold, enjoy your sausage for dinner. I didn't say we were having sausage for dinner, but we might. I've been known to have sausage for dinner. Charlie Higgs. Krug shapeshifts into these guys every show. I'm not even sure what that means, but it sounds all right. Dusty Gold said seniors for Larry. All right. Tim Donahue crew has been with us. He says, way to go, Larry. I'm an OG sub. Tim, glad to have you, brother. Glad to have you. He's been there since the beginning. But where's the Klarsar? That made my day. We'll put that on the board right there. My grandma's a big Krug Show fan. All right, that's going to do it for us. Check us out tomorrow with Vish and Jesse. Also tomorrow on Dave Lombardi's channel at 2 o'clock. I'll be joining him. Everybody join me over there. We are closing in on 20,000 subs. I got a bunch of videos coming out later on today that might get us over the top. We might be over 20,000 before we hit the air tomorrow. We're at 19,968. 32 subs away from 20,000. Unfreaking believable. Unbelievable. Charlie Higgs says, go Grammy. There you go. Klarsard. My grandma's a big Krug Show fan. Grandma Klarsard. Yes!
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Careful, whatever.